15th of July 2022. You're welcome back to the channel on this beautiful evening in 2022 in Ireland. A long time ago, 30 years ago, maybe 33 years ago, this was a green field, and I gathered some money together and I bought it off the man that owned it, and I set out to do a plan and to design a house to rear my family. And I made a cardboard version of it. I made a cardboard model, and many people laughed at it because I had it in another house I was in, and they laughed at the idea of this cardboard model. But by doing that and by pasting in the various rooms, we got it through all the problems that might arise before it was built. And then it was submitted to planning, and I built my house and I reared my family here. And the big front lawn, which I'm sitting in now, had a dual purpose. It could also double as a football pitch. It had a hill down, but that time Italia 90, the Irish were in the World Cup, and the young children here and the neighbouring children could come in, and they had an actual place that they could kick football here. I made a goal post for them, and they're all big now, and it helped to develop them and get them well adjusted with the neighbouring children. So the house was a success. So what I'm getting at here is that I cannot stand any project or any work being done without the proper planning and without the proper cost-benefit analysis, whether it's formal or informal being done. And this is why I oppose so much of what government does, because it just goes on what the whim is, not what's engineering, the most engineering beneficial. Now this is regime change 46E. And lies backfire. Lies that backfire. Now we are living through very strange times, and I'm no stranger to controversy. Now the thing I'm against here is how the governments of the world lie to their people at election time, and then when they get into power, they change their tune. Now the World Economic Forum is pushing all this woke climate change, carbon taxes, and the EU is going head over heels to impose 70 billion and rising of taxes on burning fuel. At the same time, they're panicking because they may not get fuel in the winter, and if they don't get fuel, they can't impose taxes on the emissions from the fuel while people starve. So they're really in trouble, and it's causing regime change. Now, it's well known and well flagged that even with all Boris Johnson's lunacy and stupidity, had the British people been facing a winter of modest comfort, and had he been able to manage his economy, they might still have tolerated him. The whole idea of Boris was that he was rough and ready, practical, and would keep the economy going. If he did that, they might put up with a lot of his breaches of the law and minor things like that. But he didn't. He failed to deliver on being a prime minister proper and keeping the law and doing the right thing. But he also failed to deliver on the economy, because the minute he got in, he was exposed as a liar. He said he was going to go for all the woke World Economic Forum, Davos, Bilderberg, and all this old crap where the rich tax the poor. And that was what the Tory MPs knew they were facing, and that's what they were going to get for the next 3 or 4 years with the bowed Boris. So they humped him out, kicked him out, and that's only the start. In Australia, Richard Marbles is the Prime Minister, I think, and you might look this up. Penny Wong is a foreign minister. They made a big speech about the condition and the security of the Pacific in the wake of China's rise and the Ukraine-Russian thing. But they finished it off to assure that the most pressing problem is climate change. The biggest fight they're going to have is climate change, right? So we're in a position where soldiers might be expected to lay down their lives, act as fighter pilots and all that, and take bullets. And what have we? We have to fight climate change. And if you had to send your son to fight climate change or fight the Russians or the Chinese, which would you select? You want to have them home. So this lie is being pushed because they seem to think it makes them feel good. Or are they pandering to the US Democratic Party, or what? but it makes them feel good. But it has already sunk Boris Johnson. So, so, um, so as I said, climate change has brought down Boris Johnson, and now we have the same in Italy. They went for all this old woke crap too. They didn't condemn it, and Mario Draghi had to resign there, and the Italian president refused to accept his resignation. But the fact is, they can't get consensus in Parliament, and that's because they too are pushing, along with other things, this out climate baloney, which can only end in tears, whether it be a month or a year or whatever. You cannot do without fossil fuel in your economy. If you try to do it and you try to fool people, you'll get away with it for a while, and then down comes your whole house of cards. So that's the story there. You can check Mario Draghi. Italy got a huge amount of money. I'll go through that in a second. Now, if you go into Gravitas, you see Gravitas there. There's a good video, plenty of good videos online, but Gravitas deals with this, the Italian government, and how it's facing collapse. And that channel to do things fairly good. And there's several others as well. Now, Sri Lanka's gone. The president had a run. They went into his house and he had to flee. He had to submit his resignation from a foreign country. That's the kind of ridiculous. Now, I can't say that Sri Lanka was into climate wokeism, but it's gone anyway. Turkey also was doing a bit of the same. 70% inflation. It's going nowhere either. It's going nowhere either. It's not able to feed its people. It's hardly going to fight climate change. Now, in 2016, 400 billion was given to Italian banks, and 17% of loans were defaulted on with Italian banks in 2016. So they had to give them 400 billion to bail out the banks, mostly from the EU. And recently they gave them. Sorry, I might have that wrong. Well, I have 400 billion. Anyway, I have another figure here of 200 billion. Maybe that's more accurate. Now, it's not easy to get in a hurry on a nice evening, but 200 billion anyway. And they're after giving them 600 million, more money to try and tide them over. That's in dollars. So they're dumping money into Italy. That's the main thing. Now, in France, Macron, who was only recently elected, refused to accept the resignation of his prime minister. So there's a hopelessly split government in France. They're not going to get much over the line. But again, the main target, the main drive of the French government is climate change, number one. Number two, it's climate change again. And the third one is climate change again. Where is it getting them? They can't agree, because it's the same as trying to pull people into a lake and drown them. They'll resist at every opportunity, and that's what's happening there. So Macron, he can stay in power, but he won't have a government to be able to do anything. He's a mad European too, not going to work out for him. Now, last year the Dutch government resigned over a child abuse scandal. They were fiddling the child, not the child abuse, child benefit scandal. They were fiddling the child benefit. They were fiddling the child benefit. I didn't say it was child abuse. Sorry about that. Okay, so that was it. So anyway, that's the thing. They're not going well either. But the farmers had a protest in over these emissions, over this woke green emissions baloney. This World Economic Forum demand that the government do this of the people, and there was protests over this and forcing the farmers off the land. And it went so far that the Dutch police opened fire with live rounds of ammunition on the farmers. They opened fire. Now, I think nobody was hurt, but it says something when the government of the Netherlands, Holland, allows its police force to fire on the farmers. No police were injured. So where is that going? When you see that, it mightn't be that long until Irish farmers are fired on by the Gardaí. I think the Gardaí would, I don't believe that any of them would do it, but you could always get a hothead somehow. So this is the ludicrous stuff we're facing, all because they're forcing this stuff down our throats without carrying out the necessary assessments under Article 3.2 of the SEA directive in Europe. They've ignored it and they've pushed it through, just because a crowd of big, fancy, swanky, well-to-do people want to impoverish the people, take up all this 70 billion and more to come, and spend it on their pet projects. That's the reality, and leave people with nothing. How long will that last? Now, it's well known. Angela Merkel left an awful mess in Germany. She left a dirty mess. She was a silly, silly, silly person. Now, at the moment, there's a crowd called Uniper, and they're a gas importation company. They import gas from Russia. Uniper SE, and they're looking for a bailout, and it said they're going to get it. Now, what the EU is saying, they'll use the COVID fund to bail them out. The COVID fund. So look at the way the COVID is now used. It's like the tax they put during the economic collapse in Ireland, the universal social charge. It's still here, and all is found in another use. You see, some other way to tax, and so now they're going to use COVID as a method to tax because they say, well, we have the mechanism in place, so we'll collect more money off the taxpayer and we throw it over to the German gas. So here they are bailing out a fossil fuel company. This is the very government that said they were going to do without fossil fuel. So as a Russian gas importer, more sad story there. Things not going well in Germany. Now, Trump warned the Germans, of course, and he warned the Germans who were relying on Russia. And recently, the Germans are buying their gas off the spot market. They have to buy it off the spot market, where it's several times dearer. Several times dearer. Now, the thing about it is, you know, the EU has been telling the Russians they're going to do without fuel before there was ever a Ukraine. We're going to use renewables. Now, so this was supposed to be great. Won't it be great? We're not using fuel. Then they put sanctions on Russia to try and stop the fuel. And initially, the sanctions included the fuel. Now, the Russians have two gas lines. There's the Nord Stream 1 and Nord Stream 2. And there's a pump gone. I saw it on the YouTube. There's a pump gone. It's a turbine type pump that pumps the gas. Very, very precise piece of equipment. It gives trouble if it was sent to Canada where it was made to be serviced. And meanwhile the sanctions came in, and the Canadians wouldn't send it back because they said it had breached the sanctions. Now, when the Russians said we can't send you the gas, we have no pump, they got round that now, and now they're sending over the pump to Russia. That's through Nord Stream 1. That's the main line. The second line was completed, and it looks like the Americans intervened because Joe Biden and his son have been messing about with Ukraine and trying to pull millions out of it for a long time. So it seems the Americans got in the way and got the Germans to refuse to certify the second gas pipeline, Nord Stream 2, coming in on the sea from Russia. So the Germans stopped the second gas pipeline, and now they're whinging that Russia is using gas as a weapon, and they stopped it, one of the gas pipelines. So it'll probably never open again. It's a huge long pipeline. You can get it there. I think it's 600 kilometers long. Now, the Nord Stream 1 is still there, so the big question now is what will Russia do whenever the new turbine pump is received back? Will they start pumping gas again? And that's a good one to watch. But there are big fears that they'll do it in bits and pieces. Nobody can rely on Russia anymore, and they have no alternative, no matter what anybody says. So all the great people who was talking about hydrogen, windmills, solar panels, all this stuff, they better now come up with something, because it's either fossil fuel, which it's not there, or some of their great ideas, and none of this stuff appears to be working. It was all a fraud from the beginning, and idiots try to shove it down my throat that you could use these hydrogen and all these things and perpetual motion machines and all this stuff to power your economy. What utter baloney. Now, China banks are in trouble. There's a lot of the small banks in China in trouble. The Chinese economy is in trouble, even though I suspect it will come back. I suspect the Chinese will eventually be making the cars. They're going to start making internal combustion engine cars and electric cars, and I would suspect that as Europe is forced out of the car market, you're going to see, and the Japanese as well, the Chinese taking over. And when there's no cars, they'll have to let the Chinese in. I mean, this is what we're voting for, to destroy our own industry. Now, so anyway, Chinese banks can't pay depositors. If you check it on YouTube, you'll find banks where people are outside looking for the money, and they're not able to get their money out. And so I made an earlier video on the cryptocurrencies and alternative currencies. Now, of course, those who want to put the money somewhere can always buy gold, can always buy precious metals. But it looks at the minute that it's increasingly difficult to find a place to put money into. You can't really trust any bank. And in that situation, there could be a flight back to cryptocurrencies. People might go back to using it. If it was run honestly, well, there'd be something, not all would be lost. Now, I made the video saying it's actually worth zero. But yet, if the money was put in and it wasn't siphoned off, it should be there, or at least some of it should be there. It's hard to know. It's very hard to advise on that. I saw in the paper where the Gardaí did manage to hit a cryptocurrency Bitcoin account. I didn't think the Irish police could, but apparently they have some way of accessing it. I'm not sure about that. So, in an environment where there's nowhere you can put your money, I mean, what's going to happen? What will people do? Because people will be selling houses and downsizing. What are they going to do with their money? It's unbelievable. It's as big a problem to keep your money as it is to get it. Anyway, so what we're looking at here is the possible regime change in Europe. We could see several. Now Boris Johnson's gone, Mario Draghi's gone. So since all the ministers went over to visit Ukraine since February, 2 European leaders are gone. Putin is still there. Now Biden himself is not doing well either. He'll never be re-elected. His popularity's way down, and again, with all the gas prices and everything, it looks like he's not going to get a majority as party in the House of Representatives and in the Senate in the next election this year either. And then there's this World Economic Forum. Just get to know about it. I'll mention it again. They're the people who are driving all this. So what they're saying to politicians is, you get your people to elect you by lying to them. Tell them a whole heap of lies, and when you get elected then you must do our bidding, and that's exactly what happened. So their plan is that the political candidates lie to the people, tell them lies, get elected on those lies, and then enforce a different policy. Sorry, that's police. That should be policy. Sorry about that. A different policy, woke, green, climate hysteria. Get on this climate hysteria bandwagon and impose massive taxes to cripple industry, cripple people using fuel, and cripple the cars and take them off the people, and really drive everybody back to the horse and cart. That's their policy. So now, if the carbon emissions are 50 billion a year, and Putin has really showed how stupid that is. But it's amazing, like how the competition is now on for the alarmism. It used to be that the climate changers had all to themselves. The World Economic Forum, they had the media and all at their beck and call. Greta Thunberg, the whole lot, Thunberg, firing on and shouting on and roaring about climate change, and getting everybody taxed and seizing up the whole economy, which was impossible to do without massive unemployment, and stopping the use of fossil fuel. And now it's the opposite. Now they're praying that they can't get this fossil fuel. And how are they going to raise all their carbon taxes if there's not much fuel to burn? And this is hitting the governments now big time, and it won't be too long, in my opinion, till the voters reject them. There'll be bits of elections here and there, and the voters will turn to alternative candidates that will not take any of this nonsense. When people are hungry, when people are cold, when they're impoverished, when they see everything they had gone, everything they worked for, the gratuities, the lump sums, everything gone, redundancy money, when they see all that, and then a cold winter comes in and hunger, that will fix them. That, in my opinion, will fix them. Something had to come. It might have taken another year without Putin's invasion, but something had to come, and it has come, and it's on its way now. There's panic everywhere, and they need to be fixed. The people who fall for this green baloney, they're in Dublin 4, they're in London, they're in Paris, they're in Italy, they're everywhere. They fell for it. They took it on board, hook, line and sinker. They voted for it. And now the consequences have to be borne by us all. Unfortunately, I have to put up with it and suffer from it, as well as the rest. All we can do is prepare as best we can, and we'll deal with that in another video. So anyway, the point is, Putin may be there when a lot of them are gone. I know he's a dictator, but they should know how to look after their seat. That's their skill. That's what they're meant to do, and they're not up to it. Hopefully the replacements that will come along will reject all this climate hysteria, cultural Marxism, woke codology, and go back to something like traditional normality. give me a thumbs up, folks, or a thumbs down. I will see you back for something else on this most beautiful evening. You can hear the crows. There are cars around here. You can hear how calm it is and how beautiful our countryside is. And I mean, this is at one place I am. I have a farm, and the windmills is humming around it, destroying it. This is why I fight to preserve the wonderful environment we have in Ireland, and enough of us to put up a battle to try and keep it. It's well worth it. It's a beautiful country in good weather like this. So thank you very much. See you back, folks. Bye bye. Bye bye.